ahead and get started. It's just about 9 o'clock. I just got out of bed. Yes, you know, it's funny. We have some people I know who wanted to join from New Zealand and Australia, and you get a notification from Zoom whenever anybody tries to join, and I think it's like 2 a.m. their time right now. So we'll see as people get to join throughout the day. That's why I made it with just a few live gatherings and then other things that we can all do on our own time. But, you know, I got up this morning and it really did feel like a special day. And I'm so grateful to be able to share it with you all. And I wanted us to start the day just kind of checking in with what solstice means and what it means to us individually and collectively. And, you know, I talked in the podcast about how it's a time when the amount of light is like there's the most sunlight on the planet. If you're in the northern hemisphere, it's the longest day of the year. It's the shortest day of the year if you're in the southern hemisphere. So that could be a very kind of intense. I talked a bit in the podcast about like almost like a pendulum swing where we're all the way out and the Earth's axis is tilted as much as it can be to be as close towards the sun for us in the north or as far away. But it's wonderful because it reminds us of the cycles of time. And it, you know, when I planned this for as long as I can remember, I really truly thought that solstice always fell on the 21st. And so the first, if you guys remember the first time I announced it, I said, the 21st is when we're going to do it. And then I did some more research and realized, oh, it's actually the 20th to the 21st when it falls. That's because we're using the Gregorian calendar, which I think it's interesting to revisit for a moment. If anybody's heard me talk about how the Gregorian calendar came into being by the Roman Catholic Church for the purposes of taxation, and they took these evenly spaced cycles, and Julius Caesar wanted more days in his month called July, so he stole some from February, and then Augustus wanted the same thing, stole some more from February. So our calendars all kind of disjointed, and I felt it a little bit when I was like, oh, it's actually the 20th to the 22nd. So we're on the early side this year, and we'll circle back to when we get to the pagan meaning of, or some significance for the pagans of solstice. Of, you know, time to the ancients was a circle. And time happened in cycles. And I think the more that we spend time there, the more we can really feel how much we crave that understanding, like in our bones. But I wanted to geek out a little bit, not geek out, but just share with you guys. I like to talk about, and I mentioned, you know, all the ancient cultures knew about the significance of solstice, and I just wanted to briefly share, you know, well, which ancient cultures are we talking about? So the first thing I want to just talk about here is this is the Temple of the Sun, and the Temple of the Sun is made so that so this is the Temple of the Sun at Machu Picchu. So there's two temples of the sun that actually align with solstice, and so they're in the southern hemisphere, so it's actually their winter solstice today. And on winter solstice, the sun, they built a window in the Temple of the Sun so that the sun would shine directly through this window and light a specific spot on a carved out sacred rock in their temple. And they did the same thing at the Temple of the Sun in Cusco. So they obviously knew about the alignment of, you know, the stars. I talk a lot about Egypt as well, and we'll get to Egypt in a second. I'm just going to give I think 3 or 4 more photos before we get into kind of a deeper dive. So Stonehenge is where we're going next, and we talked about this last winter solstice. The heel stone of Stonehenge is significant for both it's summer solstice there right now, but it's the sun rises and sets on both summer and winter solstice at two very opposite ends, and they've oriented these stones so that whether you're there at sunrise or sunset, whether you're there winter or summer solstice, they've aligned this ancient megalithic structure so as to harness the power of the sun. And I want to invite us to consider that, you know, throughout the day, some of the meditations, the drawing down the sun, the one at noon that we're going to do is just really communing with the sun. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a cult of the sun. It can just be under feeling the energy of the sun, feeling the life force of the sun, and considering for ourselves how we might want to harness the energy of the sun. This next photo is interesting to me. When I was digging around, I didn't actually know about the ring of Broadgurr, which is in Scotland's Orkney Islands. And so up there in the Orkney Islands, it's kind of more, it's super north, so it hardly even gets dark, which is kind of even, you know, the Swedish midsummer is something where it's like, again, it's hardly ever gets dark. But here, the stone circle, the sun aligns with the way the stones are set up aligns with, there's an opening for the sunrise at solstice, there's an opening for sunset at solstice. And this is kind of shows you what that would look like during solstice. And then we'll go next to one of my favorite places, which is Giza, the Great Pyramid. This is an okay photo. I wanted to make sure that I got the particular parts. You know, I talk about in Egyptian culture, they were really into the star Sirius. So when we look at the Great Pyramid, there were those star shafts that were aligned so that when you were looking out at night on a particular day during the Stargate, you could see Sirius and get downloads. The Egyptians love solstice because this particular solstice is what they consider to be the harking of the rising of the star Sirius. So what happens on summer solstice in Egypt is if you stand directly in front of the Sphinx, you'll see the sun set precisely between the pyramids of Khafre and Khufu. I think I pronounced that right. And you can kind of see them right there. So the sun's going to probably set, this is the best visual I was imagining, kind of maybe over the shoulder of the Sphinx. So they did understand the alignment. It's not necessarily in any one object, any one pyramid, but those pyramids are aligned to like Sirius and other stars. And they saw solstice as the harking of the star Sirius rising on the horizon. Okay, one more, and then we'll get into our practice and a little bit more meditation. This is Chichen Itza. So in Chichen Itza, something interesting happens. This is in Mexico. So on summer solstice, it's actually oriented towards the corners. So the sun, the axis runs through the pyramid's northwest and southwest corners. So the north and east sides are illuminated while the south and west sides are covered in shade, and the sun kind of rises over one corner and goes to the other corner. And in Chichen Itza, during the equinoxes, which is when we have equal light, this particular pyramid, the shade on the steps creates a serpent, and they were known to worship serpents and understand serpent gods. So yeah, we can just kind of sit with that and say, hey, this is probably a pretty special day. I wonder what's going to come through for me, for us during this fantastic day. And I want to get back to the idea of time being circular. So this particular day, I'm going to share something next that's related to pagan and Wiccan culture. If we look at the wheel of the year in pagan culture, this is Litha, and it happens between the 19th and the 23rd of June. And this is so what I'm showing you is known as the wheel of the year, and it shows their seasonal festivals. And the year's chief solar events are the solstices and the equinoxes. So top and bottom are solstice, sides are equinox. And they had festivals according to the sun and the quarter parts of the sun. And what's interesting about this, I want to share something next that relates. If you guys, if we get through, well, wait, before I finish sharing this. So we have Beltane on one side and Lugnasa on the other, and they kind of believe that the Litha, this solstice energy, started at Beltane. You can start to feel the energy of the solstice, and it fully goes away. Their summer is Beltane to Lugnasa. I hope I say that right. So Litha is the peak, the height of the season of summer. For us in the Gregorian calendar, it's the start of summer. For the ancients, and it kind of feels right, this is probably the peak of summer because it's the most light. at this time of the year. So if we look at this particular calendar in another form, and I didn't even really realize this and put it together until I was preparing for our gathering today. But there's another way that they describe this, and it's called the, it's some kind of a cross. But if you look at this cross and you have a chance to check out the medicine wheel video that I did for how to make a Native American pseudo pagan medicine wheel, I didn't even realize that this is what was happening in the medicine wheel. But so we have north, south, east, and west is up and down, and then you instinctively divide it, knowing that time doesn't just happen on that day; it happens in quarters. And this was the same thing that they did. They had this way of it's a cross of some sort. It's a pagan cross. The name is escaping me. It'll come at some point. But that was another way of them understanding the cycles of the year. So I want to get now to a place where we can visit with the energies that were known to those who might have practiced something like paganism. And we're going to go to the Hill of Tara. We're going to go to Celtic culture. So, it's called the Celtic Cross. I knew it would come to me. That the image I just took down is called the Celtic Cross. It is called the Celtic Cross. Okay. So here we have, this is the Hill of Tara, and this was the place where they celebrated solstice in Ireland and in Celtic traditions on hilltops, and there was lots of fires and bonfires and people jumping over fires, and they would make these fire wheels and roll them into the whatever body of water was nearby to get the marriage of fire and water. But this is definitely a fire element holiday, and we can feel it by the fire and the light from the sun. And in Gaelic, solstice is called grain stad, which literally means sun stop, and that is due to the fact that in the days before and after solstice, it literally appears that the sun rises and sets at the same point on the horizon. It goes right up overhead. And there were a couple goddesses that were associated with this holiday. I didn't get the chance to really, and I think I want us to do a little bit of meditation, so there's only so much we can share. But in Ireland, it was Itza. In Wales, it was Rhiannon, and in France, it was Epona. And so they also worshipped their goddess on this day. And they also believed that this was a time where if you wanted to banish any heavy energy, this would be a good time to do it, because they were able to harness all the power of the light. It's almost as if the sun could just disintegrate with its light any heaviness. So we're going to be considering a little bit of release here too. And they celebrated by using fire, and we'll do that at the end of the day. If you happen to be able to join me during the third gathering, we're actually going to be using safely fire. And I guess one more thing I wanted to talk about before we get into our practice is that to the ancient Greeks, this particular day was the start of the new year. To the ancient Romans, this was also a day where they celebrated the goddess Vesta, who was the goddess of home and virginity, which might mean sovereign female power. And then, as I mentioned, to the Egyptians, this was the coming of Sirius, the brightest, their most significant and brightest star in the sky. And we can imagine here, this Hill of Tara, you can imagine people, they were there in the morning, they were there all day, they were there into the night, celebrating the night before into the night following with fire and dance and feast and food. And it was a huge holiday that happened on any and all hilltops, particularly this hilltop. So I just love kind of the idea of transporting ourselves there. Okay, so we're going to get to a practice now. And what I want us to start to consider, we're going to consider this when we do the noontime on your own, kind of communing with the sun. But the idea is that, we can, if you can be outside right now, great. If you want to bring yourself outside sometime later today, great. But, being outside, even if you're under shade, you can feel the light of the sun. If you can get your feet on the ground, take your shoes off, connect to Mother Earth. And we can feel, when we just in our mind's eye kind of go there, you can feel the fire and the life force energy of the sun. And I'll put an image up so we can start to just kind of go inward for a second so we can do a little bit of a meditation here. Oh, this image is tiny, but that's okay. I guess this is what I'm supposed to share. Just going with the flow. Let's see how that looks. And so what I wanted to capture here was nature and the sun. You can close your eyes. You can look at this image. You can go wherever you want to go, but I want us to invite us to take a few breaths here. So close your eyes and bring your awareness within, and see if you can bring your awareness to try to connect to the fire within you. So the fire within you might be personal power. It might be goddess power. It might be anything that you're passionate about. But reflect on how, when you think about your inner fire, how does that manifest within you? That is what the sun is bringing out in us today. And see if you can connect to that fire, whether it be creativity, the roar to get something done, the fire that knows when to stop. See if you can just be grateful for yourself. Send gratitude to yourself for your inner fire, for your passion, for your life force, for your fearlessness, whatever that fire feels like right now. And so we'll have people gathering in the north and south hemisphere. So I wanted to do this for both. So in the north, we're at the peak of sunlight. There's the most light in the day. And in the south, we're at the depths, the darkest day of the year. There's the least amount of light. So then how, in the north, how have you experienced being at your peak? How are you at your peak? What does that feel like? Being at this apex of something. And that would be pulling something in the 3D world. How are you doing that? Whether or not it's fully done, how have you witnessed yourself pulling into 3D? And in the south, well, that's the lack of sun is about death and rebirth. So how have you shed? What are you ready to rebirth? And in the north, it can also be a time of letting go. It can be, if we're at the peak, what has come to completion? What so far has come to fruition of your goals, of your passions, of your heart's desires? And also, if you're at the peak, kind of like the idea of the full moon, what is ready to be released? If there is something that is coming into fruition, what might be in the way of it fully coming in even bigger, even brighter? And in the south, well, what's coming through to be born, what's coming through to be seated, what's coming through is your next passion project. And then in the north, we can look to, we're at this peak of summer. What can we look to if we're in this season of apex? What can we look to harvest in the fall? Because fall is our harvest season. Summer is our growth, creation, pulling things into reality season. So we can kind of do it much like that wheel of the year, and they looked to Beltane and Lugnasa. You can kind of take it as this whole phase of time where we're at the apex now, but we've been feeling this energy come, we'll feel it go. So as we're kind of experiencing something that feels like a peak, it might even be a peak at the peak because we have until fall to really enjoy this. And the same thing for the southern hemisphere. So what have you been seeding? What have you been seeding? What have you been seeding? What do you want to see pop its head into reality when you hit spring? So I want to read to us next about solstice. And still just taking your time, turning within. I'm going to quote, I love this book. It's Celebrating the Great Mother. And it's a book written for children, but I'm a child and I love the simplicity of the book. And it's by Kate Johnson and Mara Shaw. And I'm just going to read to you what they have to say about summer solstice. Summer is a celebration of the earth's incredible bounty. Summer is a festival of this inner fire/power, the power that makes abundance and nourishment grow from tiny seeds, the power that brings things to fulfillment and expands and brightens our lives, that makes good things come from seed ideas and plans. And the warmth of the sun and the long hot days continually remind us of how good it is to find a balance between intense activity and lazy, idle hours of doing nothing. I love this one. Summer teaches us patience. The fruit is green until it's ripe, and you can't rush it. Something of the slow, sure rhythm of time will enter into us, the circle of time I offer, if we let it. No, we can't hurry things. But if we just relax and let go, things will reach their fullness without effort or ego striving on our part. And I just imagine as I'm up here watching the little apples grow, watching the little grapes grow. Every day they're growing and they're growing. And also when what they have to share, it's just so clear, you know, there's this time outside of linear time. There's these cycles that nature knows. There's the cycles that the planets are showing us. Continue to quote, as we watch the ripening and flowering and fruiting all around us, we can't help but be moved by and grateful for the generosity of the Earth Mother, who gives what we need so unstingily. Summer is a perfect time to discover our Earth connection by receiving her gifts with respect, taking only what we need, and doing what we can to minimize our impact on the delicate balance of the planet. We strengthen and nourish the bond we were given a birth with the great parent who sustains us all. Many of us take vacations in summer. We can use this time to create whole days of celebration around ancient festivals that honor the Earth's life-giving relationship with the sun, like today. And by entering into activities that teach respect for and connection with the great powers of the vital sun and the nourishing earth, we align ourselves with those powers in a very deep way. And I believe that that's what we're seeking to do. That's why, just to share with you, what came through was a herbal conference, just an herbal offering, so that as we're communing with the sun, we have our feet in the earth, and we can be both, you know, up in the heavens and searching and expanding and going into higher dimensions. And then here we are in our bodies, and here's this vast, powerful natural world. A little bit more to quote this book, and then I'll close. So as we watch the field baking in the heat, as we feel the sun's power to burn as well as to bless, we feel our own gifts, our own special abilities as they ripen and swell, and know that we too have the power to make a difference for growth or for destruction in the world. It's a time to mark peak moments of warmth and growth. Our ancestors built huge bonfires on this day to celebrate their tangible connection to the vital power of the immense burning star that keeps our planet bright, warm, and alive. It is a good time to remember that we, like the sun, contain the power to nurture and sustain, that we have a responsibility to burn as brightly as we can. It is a time to invite fire into our lives, fire to burn away all that we have outgrown and no longer serves us, fire that makes wild things grow in us, for which our inner selves have longed. Okay, so I love that, because that gives us this, as we're kind of in this meditative state, we're gonna take these, you know, whether you're north and south, there's these themes of shedding, of releasing, of death. There's the themes of coming into fruition. There's the themes of birthing. There's these themes of experiencing ourselves as these cyclical beings, as experiencing the cycles of time and really stepping into flow with that. So what I want us to just sit with for a few moments longer is all of those themes. You know, what have we outgrown? What are we ready to shed? What are we growing? What are we creating? What have we created? And I want to share one more thing for those in winter. I want to bring it full circle so that everybody can feel the energies of the day. So I'm going to quote Glenn's Livingstone. This is from pagan.org. Winter solstice is a time for celebration of the birth of the new, the birth of the advent of gifted being, the sheer surprise of joy of the cosmology. Summer solstice is a time for celebration of the fulfillment of that gift, its creativity coming to fruition, its full flowering. And summer solstice is a reunion with the source of all. I'm paraphrasing. Both solstices may be a moment or point of celebration of Mother Sun, our lineage, and passion to fulfill our part in it. The solstices may equally be a celebration of the dark womb from whom we emerge as dark peaks at winter solstice, and to whom we return as light peaks at summer solstice. Winter celebrates emergence, a coming forth, at the same time as it is a separation, a differentiation. Summer celebrates radiance, which is a dispersion, a dissolution. At the same time, it is a giving forth, a fullness of expression of the Great Mother. So just settling in with those words, we can feel it all kind of swirl within us of this. Look at how far we've come. Look at all the things that we've shifted and created, and in this whole cycle of our lives, and the cycle of the last lunar cycle, and the cycle of the last year since solstice last year. Where were we and where have we come? Even since winter solstice, if you were able to be with me up here in the property, it's a very different space up here right now. So that is, my offering for us to consider. What are the things that we want to celebrate? What are the things that we want to call in more of? What are the things that we want to shed? And how can we use harness the energies of the sun? Because the cosmological energies are always there. It's a matter for us to take the time to tune in, to harness. So we have this light to help us burn away. We have this light to help us shine brightly. We have this light that reminds us that everything is always nourished. The sun shines on everything all the time. So I don't know if anybody has anything they want to share right now. This could be a time for us to share. If it's not something you want to share, if you're just going to kind of want to sit with it, we can have that too. I'll pause for a moment and take a sip of my tea. But feel free to unmute yourself. Feel free to type anything into the chat box.
Hello, how are you? That was wonderful.
Oh, good to see you. Thank you.
What was the book again? The title of the book, the children's book?
Oh yeah, the children's book, Celebrating the Great Mother.
Okay.
Let me see if I can. I've never actually held a meeting and typed into chat myself, but I'm pretty sure I can do it. Yeah, there we go. I just put it in chat so you can get the authors' names: Kate Johnson and Mara Shaw. Really cool book. I love what they, when you put things in simpler form for children, you kind of nourish the child within us that I think is seeking to shed some of the adult skin anyhow, right?
Absolutely. And I liked what you said, and I think just within the last year, I've realized this whole idea of the connection that you can be grounded in the earth, but open to the universe. And you feel that, but that's so true. Like you always thought that, I have to be grounded or I have to be up in the, I feel both now, which is very nice. And on days like this, it helps. So thank you.
You're welcome. I was recording the midday meditation for us yesterday, and that really just struck me as what came through is just that. I was outside, I was looking, you'll see it. There's a recording of me looking up at the sun through the trees, and I've got my bare feet, and I'm like, oh, we're a conduit. Oh, we're always doing this. We're always up and we're always down. And that's the beautiful the thing about being in this physical body and being a soul of so many lives. I just love it. And I love that realization happened today.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, so you're welcome. Thank you. So good to see you. Anybody else have anything they want to share?
I would like to share something.
Hi, yeah.
Hi, I really appreciate all your recordings that you've been uploading, and it always helps me center to the energies every time. So thank you so much. And I also was thinking about not rushing a fruit to ripe, and that's how I feel like in my life at this point. And that there's still time, summer's just beginning. And I planted the seed of abundance on the last new moon, on the eclipse. I mean, I've been planting the seed for a while now, and I haven't been seeing much results, but I am just trusting that it's gonna come to fruition slowly but surely. Thank you for this magical.
You're so welcome. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a lesson that resonates with everybody. And one thing that comes through to share with you is we have these, it's almost like the universe is asking us when we've been planting and we've been working, and then there's this void, dun dun dun. And it's almost like I can't say I've learned the whole lesson, but it's at that point, it's almost like spirit's like, do you really believe? Like, what do you really want? There's no evidence. So are you going to go into fear? Or are you going to go forward? And it's on those days I'm learning to just hug myself and harness it and be like, all right, like I'm going to lean in, I'm going to do this, and it's so nice to hear you share that you really appreciate the recordings. I spent the last couple weeks like really just feeling so blessed to be up here and really wanting to share. And then I kind of gave myself a job, and then I was working. At first I was like, it's a 40-hour a week go, and then I thought, no, like put the right energy in. But it's just so nice to hear that you resonate, or that it resonates with you, because I do feel that we all connect across time and space, and we can transport ourselves anywhere. And also we're massively creative beings. So, I think for you and for all of us, that fruit will ripen. It always ripens at just the right time beyond. And when we look back at it, we realize it was the right time. If it would have ripened when we were pointing at it, it wouldn't have been as bold and beautiful of a fruit. Right. So thank you for sharing.
Of course. Thank you for holding this webinar.
Yeah, you're welcome. And so we're going to do, there's going to be 2 more gatherings that are live today. And then these gatherings will be also up as an offering that just stays on the website for everybody to be with. And the name that came through for this property was Seeding Reciprocity. And I just really got a download of how that is also a solstice thing. And then we're going to do a fire ritual that is fire safe up here, but we're going to do a fire ritual in the evening, because from everything that I've come to understand, fire, you can feel the fire of the sun, and you kind of just want to really harness that. So if you guys can join, I'd love to see you again, but if not, it's going to be recorded. So yeah, thank you. Anybody else have anything they want to share? Okay, well, so I think that what we can do as we bring this part of our day to a close is just, go inside for one more moment and see what were the realizations as you considered transformation, as you considered things coming to fruition, as you consider what needed to be shed. I think I can speak for all of us. There's tons of fears that we just get to shed, the fear of it not being enough, the fear of it not happening, the fear of not being worthy or powerful or blah, so also let's learn to sense the fear and just be willing to shed some of that so that we can step into the magic. And then what is our unique soul's magic? What is it what type of things are of abundance and beauty and love and life are we seeking to create for ourselves and for those we love and for our community? And just see if you can kind of hone in on that a little bit and take it with you through today. Whether you look at all the webinar videos I've prepared, or whether you go off into your day and you just know it's happening because the sun's up there and it's shining down brightly, so I think that this time can be so powerful. Whether or not we speak it, we're vibrating it. We're in our space that is our unique soul calling space. And we're in circle across time and space around the world. So I'm grateful for everybody. I'm grateful that you all were able to join me here. And I hope to see some of you physically in person and more of you virtually as I explore more ways to have offerings that are virtual. So feel free to message me any feedback you guys have. I presume you're all on my email list, but yeah, so blessings, light, tons of light, tons of love. I'm grateful for everybody. Thank you for joining. And so our next, if you want to join the next gathering, it's going to be 1 p.m. Pacific time. I'll be here. It's going to be 100 degrees, so I'm going to be in the shade. All right. Love you guys. Have a beautiful day.